everyone. Welcome to our Sunday Satsang. The affirmation for self-healing this morning is on perseverance. Loyalty, my great spiritual teacher used to say, is the first law of God. Most people are fickle. They change their jobs, their spouses, their friends, their beliefs, their ideas, not because of any new expansion of awareness, but because they lack the simple power of perseverance. One must be loyal to one's principles and not allow oneself to be ruled by sentiment, to be loyal to others and to one's assumed goals in life, not for sentimental reasons, but in the name of principle, is the way of divine progress. Perseverance can be difficult, for in every undertaking there is a certain amount of dull routine. Don't be ruled, however, therefore, by likes and dislikes, but do whatever has to be done. If it is right, let nothing intervene until the job is finished. The affirmation, please affirm after me. I will finish what I set my mind to do.
I will finish what I set my mind to do.
Before leaving it for something else.
Before leaving it for something else.
My word is my bond.
My word is my bond.
So also is my resolution.
So also is my resolution.
I will finish what I set my mind to do.
I will finish what I set my mind to do.
Before leaving it for something else.
Before leaving it for something else.
My word is my bond.
My word is my bond.
So also is my resolution.
So also is my resolution.
A little more quietly with deep attention. I will finish what I set my mind to do. Before leaving it for something else. My word is my bond. So also is my resolution. Now in a whisper, I will finish what I set my mind to do. Before leaving it for something else. My word is my bond. So also is my resolution. And now silently, at the point between the eyebrows, I will finish what I set my mind to do, before leaving it for something else. My word is my bond. So also is my resolution. Please pray silently with me. Though the sirens of distractions call me to turn aside and relax the sternness of my dedication, keep me steadfast on my path, Lord. My goal in life is Thee. Om Shanti Shanti. Amen.
Good morning to everyone and those tuning into us through the internet. This is reading is from Rays of the One Light, weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda, entitled Reincarnation, the Spiral Staircase. Truth is one, eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. In the book of Revelation, chapter 3, Jesus Christ tells us, Him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out. There's a difference between church dogmas, which are based on reasoned deductions from scriptural statements, and the pronouncements of wisdom, which are based on the inner realization of scriptural truths. Reason, like a train, can only follow already existing tracks of human experience. Human memory, being short, is seldom able to cross back over the threshold of persons' present existence. Biblical references to previous lifetimes on earth are overlooked in the deductive process, and we find them, therefore, excluded from the body of official dogma. Nevertheless, such references exist. The Bible itself presents them, as does Jesus in this passage, not as abstract teaching, but as direct personal perception of truth. In the same way, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita silences Arjuna's reasonable doubts on the subject, not by reasoned argument, but by the frank statement contained in the 4th chapter of that great scripture. Arjuna, you and I have passed through many births. I know all of them, though you, O chastier of foes, recall them not. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. And from Whispers from Eternity by Paramahansa Yogananda, entitled, I shall never turn my gaze away from thee. Make me see that health and sickness both are dreams. I take a sacred vow, never will I throw my love's gaze below the horizon of my constant thought for thee. Never will I take the vision of my lifted eyes and place it on aught but thee. Never will I turn my mind to anything which reminds me not of thee. I will abhor nightmares of ignorant acts. I will love dreams of noble achievements. I will love all dreams of goodness, for they are thy dreams. I may dream many dreams, but I am ever awake thinking of thee. In the sacred fire of constant remembrance burning on my soul's altar, I will ever behold thy face with my ever watchful eyes of love. Through thy grace, I know that health, sickness, love, and death are but dreams. When I finish my dream story of good dreams and awaken behind the world-painted screen of delusion, I will behold thee as the only reality. It's really a good practice to think in terms of every moment being an incarnation, because in a way it is. And every minute the same, and every hour the same, and day and week and month and year. Because in that way, we don't get stuck in the thought of, well, I'm not good enough, or I've made a mistake, or whatever it might be, because we know until we have awakened from this dream, it's an up and down journey. We find ourselves with inspiration one moment, and the next moment we're groping around wondering who we are and where we're going. And yet, when we think in terms of reincarnation, what a sweet thing, really, for God not only to send the saints to us, to awaken us from this dream, but also to put that veil, and it's a needed veil, because we can't really hardly function in this world of Maya day after day in a state of joy, though we're yearning for that, with all the experiences that we've had. We'll multiply that by thousands, millions of incarnations. What if our memory was such that we recalled maybe one moment we're having a nice lunch, and all of a sudden we remember this incarnation where we were not very good. We were doing all kinds of things, and the lifetime was a disaster. If that were to come to us like a tidal wave, we would be basically overwhelmed. And so, for the most part, except with exceptions, there's always exceptions, Divine Mother, through her compassion, has kept these many, many incarnations to the side. They're there, and they can be recalled, and in time we will recall them all. Because as explained in the autobiography of a yogi, in the causal plane, where the veil between God and the aspiring soul is extremely thin, then the way that this soul speeds up their spiritual evolution is by working out these incarnations. And what is the task? To feel that God, and to experience rather, that God is flowing through each and every incarnation. And when that experience is heartfelt, then that karma disappears. Fascinating. And so we can take from that example and do the same now, today. We have these various experiences, and all we have to do, and this is what it is to be a true karma yogi, to feel that God is doing these things through us. And Yogananda cautions us. He says, well, yes, give everything to God and feel that the good and bad He does through us, which is the truth. But don't go around doing bad things, because if you do, you will reap the benefits. And they're not benefits, as we well know. They're harsh lessons that we have to push through and, like a tunnel, go out into the light on the other side. And yet, it's not an easy thing to really think in terms of we are children of God every moment of the day, and we're immune from the cross currents of Maya and all of the ego that comes and so forth. We are vulnerable. And yet, at the same time, we've got to be extremely strong. And that's why a path such as this is such a blessing. Because, as Yogananda said, he's come for the race horses. And that's what we want to be, the race horses. Which is to say, to be very strong. Strong like Arjuna. Strong like the warrior of warriors. So that these karmas that come, and we don't have any control over what karma comes at any given moment. One moment we're healthy, the next moment we're ill. One moment we're bright and dancing in the streets, and the next moment we're rolling around wondering when God is going to come and save us from the latest dilemma. But if we work hard on loving God and work hard on renewing our vow of commitment to seek God alone, then we're less vulnerable to all of these experiences that conspire to bring us down again and again. And we find, and this is the thrill of being on the spiritual path, that we no longer are doubting God and the great ones as to what comes to our lives every given day. It's just not a concern any longer, because we have this growing trust born out of love for God, that God does not make any mistakes, and some days there's quite a lot to overcome. But we keep in mind, as Master said, when you're in a mood, I suffer. When we're discouraged, then, by extension, He suffers. And by extension, then, God suffers, God as the Guru. And so it gives us the incentive not only to push out of whatever karma is holding us down like gravity, pulling us down to this earth, but we think out of compassion. The poor Guru, he probably has enough on his plate, for goodness sakes, he's omnipresent. And if he's suffering from my mood, then imagine all the moods that are coming his way, not only from disciples, but as Yogananda said, God has given me, Divine Mother has given me too much love. And so the love of the saints is not for a moment just for the disciples, it's for all of creation. It's for all beings and all animals and all things. And so now that we are sufficiently awake as half-baked saints, then we have a commitment then to divorce ourselves enough from our own issues that we can think more in terms of compassion. And let's help the gurus. They need help. They need help, and they are helped by our growing attunement. And so in that way, then they can think, very good now. I actually am beginning to enlist now more soldiers to help in this great cause of the light. I've been enjoying now my latest images. As many of you know, I love images. So the latest is this, with this new center. I'm imagining Master standing right here, Swami too, and he's 10 miles high. So that all of Bangalore, this ceiling has inspired the thought. This lovely high ceiling. 10 miles high, sending out the light to all souls, blessing them. And also the inspiration, in part, is drawn by the stories of Ramakrishna. When in the early years, there in Kolkata, he would broadcast often with his entire being. He was such a bhakti, and with such love, he would broadcast again and again to these souls, "Come, come, I'm awaiting you." Broadcasting to his disciples, broadcasting to those that would taste even one moment in his presence, because that's all it takes. There's no doubt an incarnation that we have had where the saint passed by our path, and thankfully we were sufficiently awake that we saw what was there, and it changed our life. And perhaps it set the tone for many, many incarnations to tread the path of the inner life from that one experience. And so we, as we contemplate the many, many incarnations that we have had, and we have had them, if Yogananda remembers, which he did, of course, when he was a diamond, which I still can't quite wrap my mind around, but I, from time to time, think, well, okay, try again. See if you can make any more headway. Easier to think in terms of he as Arjuna, and he as William the Conqueror, and so forth and so on. Yes, a little bit easier than he is a diamond. But nevertheless, we've been around a long time. And remember too, when Swami was very curious, "Have I been your disciple for a long time, sir?" Yogananda said, "Well, it's been a long time. That's all I'll say." Because he didn't want to discourage Swami, saying, "Yeah, you've been with me for billions of years." Because Swami was worried that he was the last of the pack. One of those stragglers that was just constantly getting it wrong, and so forth. And we can have that thought too, and it's a thought to thrust out with real vigor, because it doesn't help us. And so when we think in terms of reincarnation, we reincarnate to get it right. And we reincarnate again to get it right. And to get it right until finally we are in a state of perfection where we don't have to come down unless we want to. Like Gyainamata, she didn't need to come down, but Master has talked often about having bodyguards. Where two or more are gathered, there I am in the midst of them. We need satsang, we need our bodyguards, and so even as a great saint, he didn't need that. But as an example, who did he bring down? Rajasi, Gyainamata, Swami, and so many others. He had many saints, some of them unknown to us, so that he could be helped in his great, great mission. And truly it was a great mission when Swami was asking about his role and so forth, and the great work that he was accomplishing. Yogananda said, quite frankly, it would have taken an avatar. And he said he came free, as he said of all these great ones on our altar. They came in free. It would have taken an avatar to pull off such a great work. And we know that more and more now, because years ago, Yogananda was, certainly somewhat known. When Swami got on the path in the 40s, he wasn't known all that well. But now, really, when you talk to people on the streets, often, perhaps if the conversation turns to spiritual things, they'll say, well, tell me a little bit about your spiritual life. Oh, I follow the Bengali guru, Paramahansa Yogananda. Oh, I've read his autobiography. Oh, it changed my life. I have heard it, no doubt you have heard it multiple times, and will continue to hear it. It has that power, because as he said to Swami Kriyananda, when he said, I loved your work. So Yogananda said, that's because it has my vibrations. And Swami didn't quite understand that, because he could only think in terms of the scientific thought of vibrations. It kind of stopped his mind. My vibrations? Okay, I'll work on that, something to meditate on. But it's much more than the stories, although the stories are wonderful. And there's so much in that fabulous book, which is truly a scripture. But it's primarily because of Master's vibration. And so, as we think in terms of our lives, then to speed up the whole process then we need to get better and better at getting out of these states of consciousness which do nothing for ourselves. And now that we're becoming more and more aware, the fruit of meditation is not only intuition, but it's growing awareness, then more and more we become very, very committed to being vigilant. And so if we find ourselves getting into a negative state, we think, well, let me stop for a moment and see if this is what I want. Do I want this? And we think, well, I don't think so. And that's often all it takes, because the Maya is keen on this. The karma comes and it creates some chaos in our hearts and minds, and the Maya is all happy for that. And then the Maya thinks, well, that's really not good enough. I'd like to see this spiral downturn of consciousness last, for a longer time. So let me push along a good thing as far as the Maya is concerned, a good thing, keeping us, stuck in limitation. And so it brings on maybe another unhappy thought. And then, we beat our breast, even more that, we're the downtrodden and we have a miserable life and all that. And yet, if we're more vigilant, then we see that every moment can be another incarnation, another crossroads. And we choose, which is what it's all about. That's what it is to be wise. We choose, no, I don't think so. The Maya's got a lot of power, and it's very keen on me being in this silly state for as long as it can last. And we have memories, no doubt, where it's gone on for a time, such a time, that it becomes ridiculous. It's why I love Roma sisters recalling that they got into a battle, and it lasted for about 6 weeks. One of the sisters finally got up the courage, because it took that, because they were at a real standstill, and they loved each other, to call. And so, broke the ice, how's the weather? You usually start with that. And a few other things. And then they started to laugh because they forgot why they were mad at each other. Fantastic. Great story with a fabulous lesson. And so if we get ourselves into, some kind of a space that isn't all of that uplifted, then what a great trick. Excuse me, let me put the pause button on. Do you remember why you're in this mood? Half the time we don't remember. We're just groping in the darkness. And then we can smile. We don't even need to prop our lips up because it becomes, again, ridiculous. And we say, well, do I like this? No, I don't. Taking Swami's example, where he got into a mood in the early years there at Mount Washington. And finally, he decided that he wasn't enjoying himself. A wise thought. And so he put his mind very strongly at the point between the eyebrows. And in 5 minutes, that mood was gone. And so we find that, really, if we think in terms of the great lesson of reincarnation, and we can apply it to our present existence, then every moment being another incarnation, and every minute and every hour and so forth, then we don't have to spend any time when we find ourselves finally in a state of grace, and it's truly that, where we want to make a shift in our consciousness. Don't think for a moment that God and Guru are absent from our lives. That may have been a tug-of-war for you. It was certainly a tug-of-war for me. I was very unhappy with God for a long time because I didn't think he was participating at all. And finally I thought, well, let's go a little deeper in that. If God is the director and playing all parts, don't you think he's participating? Mm-hmm. And I had to think, yeah, okay. He's participating. And don't you think when he comes in the form of the saints, fully immersed in him, that he's participating on this grand level to help us? Yes, okay. There was something in my heart that was upset. I just didn't feel that he was getting his hands dirty. He was just, you go out and play in the Maya and I'll see you later. It was a very strong thought that I had for some years, odd as it sounds. But at one point I said, no. That's not reality. He is here. And if he is here, which he is, then I can call on him and he can pull me out of any state that is pulling me down. And my relationship with God changed. And my love for God increased. And my trust in God increased. And so for us, really, we have to pull out any trick possible that we can to keep our consciousness uplifted, because again, the incarnation is flying by. And we do have the hope that we are done in this incarnation, and we have everything that we need, the tools, the guru, everything, that it can be so. So that, like Yainamatu, who did not need to come back, and suffered for 20 years, burning out the karma of others, she didn't have any herself, so that if indeed we come back, and we may will, then we can be an instrument to uplift and help others, driven by the memory when we too were burdened by karma and burdened by this Maya. And so there's many incentives to not incarnate unless we want to. And so with a path such as this, with the power that is here, we have that incentive. We truly do. And so, really, this incarnation is a rare incarnation. Don't think that it isn't. It is. Because just as Yogananda said, when asked, do you reincarnate in the same planet each time? He says, oh, no. If you did, you'd find out too quickly. So, by extension, would we have an incarnation like this every single time, time after time after time? I don't think so, because God loves his little play, and the next incarnation, if we don't get it right, we may just be some humble grocer somewhere. It's wonderful. And maybe think of God from time to time, and that's that incarnation. We think, oh my gosh, where are the gurus? We have this dim memory, perhaps, we can't quite get a handle on, but it's there. And then we have another incarnation such as this, where we have fertile ground to make tremendous headway with all that we've been given. Well, God bless us. We hope that we do, not only for ourselves, but for our family, for our friends, for all that cross our path. Because we are here for our brothers and sisters. We are here to help uplift all those on this planet through sending out the light and all creation. Don't limit your prayers just to this planet. Remember, we've come out of infinite bliss, and that's where we're going back to, and that's where we are right now, if we can remember. And so, don't just think in terms of just the little family and this little earth even. Be thinking in terms of the many, 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 many beings, souls, whatever it might be, in creation, that will be uplifted and benefited by you being an instrument for the light and sending out that light. So we don't want to incarnate again if we don't have to. And there's many others that feel the same, whether they're aware of it or not. Let's send them the light and the encouragement and the hope that they can hold on to the feet of God and Guru and the great ones and find their way back from this labyrinth, which it truly is. So, God bless you, and incidentally, happy Thanksgiving to everyone, and we'll now have our Aarti and blessing.